Hi everyone, welcome. What you see out here on the bench is a experimental setup that I have with some European nightcrawler worms living in it. And all this clutter out here is just meant to show all the stuff that I have assembled to assist with today's check-in. So from this side over, we're going to begin with some of the bedding that I was going to use, which is just 3 soiled paper towels. A little bit damp because I used one of them to wipe some stuff up, and then after we've laid in the bedding, we can also throw in their foods. And for food today, we're going to revert back to what we've been feeding here for the most part during the whole 60 days that this system's been in service. Is small particle sized foods consisting of worm chow, and down at the bottom of this carton you could see some coffee. So their feeding was going to be that. And as I go through each item, I'm just going to remove it so we can get to work once I'm done explaining everything. And after we fed, I was going to apply some of this stuff here. And this is mosquito dunks. I know you could buy mosquito bits or little granules or little pellets, or you could buy them in these circular shaped little donuts. And I always used to make a solution out of the mosquito dunks, but more recently I've just been going with applying this stuff dry, shaking it into my system. And the main reason is because of what you could probably see already here. It's not about mosquitoes, it's more about these pesky little fruit flies or gnats or whatever they are. So in the past, the mosquito dunks has saved me with regards to getting rid of little outbreaks of those annoying little flying insects. And I've got a replacement top cover because I know that the top cover that we've been using all this while has really gotten to a fairly degraded state. And last time we draped over what remained of it, but you can already see, well, some of it still remains. I figured what remains would also get added to the paper towels and used as bedding when we're done. This stuff, you might have wondered, why is this stuff always sitting out here on the top of this container if you've seen previous videos on this system. This is just some of the debris that also got caught in the screen when I was screening the material that ended up making this stuff up. And it wasn't the stuff that went through the screen, the really fine vermicompost, it's the stuff that actually got caught in the screen. And that's the reason we've been calling this my little castings boulders system. So the moisture is something I've not been using a whole lot lately, but I figured since high moisture in this system was kind of a design specification, I figured I would actually break out the squirt bottle and apply some moisture. So after a whole lot of explanation, why don't we just jump right in and take care of getting these systems, or well, this system fed. 12 days, no, 14 days now. It's been 2 weeks since the last time we checked in on these little guys. And at that time, we actually deviated from the typical routine of feeding them small-sized, small particle foods like what they're getting again today. It was an idea that one of the viewers provided, which was to try putting some tempting food items out within the castings boulders to see if we could lure the worms out there with some, I think it was cucumber and watermelon, maybe. So I think, let's see if we could figure out where we had placed them. I think I see kind of a divot here and a divot here. So I think perhaps watermelon was placed here and perhaps cucumber was placed here. And since the food was just thrown right out into the boulders, let me just show you what I mean by the boulders. Like I said earlier, it was the stuff that got caught in the screen as I was separating the lovely vermicompost from anything that would get caught in the screen. This is what this system was made up of. And then in the beginning, we placed a nice patch of bedding down into the middle and fed there and moistened thoroughly there. And then we figured if the worms are able to and want to adopt the surrounding material, the boulders, then let's see if they do. So we'll begin by examining some of the boulders furthest away from where the supply of bedding kept getting replenished. I mean, this is feeding number 5, so we've only been in here a handful of times over the 60-day lifespan. It is realistic that we've only been in here, I think, perhaps 3 check-ins. This might be the 4th check-in, or 5th maybe. I think it's feeding 5 going in today. And as I kind of make my way around, I do bump into a worm or two here and there, all the way out in the castings boulders, telling me that they're able to get into this stuff and wander it if they want to and explore. I guess that's a good thing, because I originally questioned whether the stuff would be potentially hazardous to them or unsuitable or something that they simply wouldn't accept. But it does seem like they're quite capable of getting into this stuff. So we've kind of gone around and we've actually now aerated all of the castings boulders, which I don't think we've even ever really done this much of an intrusive check-in on this stuff by going around like that. Now, I believe this would have been where the watermelon was placed last time. And even though watermelon's a super popular food, usually the skin of the watermelon will remain. So if we do find any leftovers, it might be a little tiny bit of the skin of the food we left for them there. And I could tell from the feel of the material that it's a much smoother, finer consistency material, not just a bunch of little boulders like I'm running my hands through some pebbles. Here it feels a lot softer over here. Curious to see if we excavate where I believe we placed the cucumber, what it's like over here. Here too, good bit of moisture kicked off by both of those foods, causing the stuff to be a little bit muddy and clumpy, and a good number of worms hanging out over there, enjoying, I guess, what remains. Perhaps just the moisture remains, but whatever it is, they're enjoying it because they're all kind of huddled together there. And let's not forget, our estimate for how many worms populate this system is 134, and that was just my estimate averaged with a bunch of other estimates from other viewers. So you know, certainly not a heavily populated system, although, you know, I like to be optimistic and hope that the worms are breeding, because there is certainly space for worms to hang out here. But then again, that might just be our perspective. If they don't really consider the boulders as viable, livable space, then perhaps I'm kind of misunderstanding how they might be perceiving their environment. I am almost questioning whether I want to add moisture, but I am gonna. And that's the part of the reason the system was built the way it was. Let me see if I could do so without making a big mess. This top tray is one of my shallower containers resting inside of a deeper container, and something just broke. A little crack somewhere. Well, both of these systems are fairly heavily damaged, as you can tell. The upper one lost its handle, the lower one got melted. But working together, they're kind of a usable system, so I got to be careful handling things this awkwardly. So apologies for that little scare with the loud noise. But you know what I'm going to do? I want to get on to feeding, because I think we've been pretty disruptive already, and at this point I'd like to just start winding things down. So we're going to open up a pretty good size space here in the middle. Last time we didn't do this. Every other check-in we've always been wanting to place fresh bedding materials down into the center so that they've got some place to be, just in case the castings boulders are inhospitable for them to move into. But last time we didn't do that, and then we put out slightly different foods than we usually do by giving them those juicy fruits. But I think we're gonna, for the most part, revert back to the way things have been here. So I threw in a little bit of the top covering newspaper, and I figured I'd go at this as sort of a layered setup and drop in a little bit of the food, drop in a little bit of the bedding, drop in a little bit more of the food, and so on, building up the layers. And I gotta keep reminding myself that this is a very sparsely populated system, so I don't want to overfeed either. And considering it was only 134 worms that we built this system with, it's I guess I was even kind of almost expecting to find leftovers, not knowing what that few number of worms would be able to make of those couple of good-sized chunks of fruit we fed last time. Not to mention that it was positioned in a questionable place, whether or not they'd even be able to spend much time over in the castings boulders to get at that yummy food we gave them, but I believe the lure of the yummy food was enough to get them out there for sure. I think telling us that the environment that we've created for them here is probably pretty hospitable. And you know, that's all I have of the coffee down here, so why don't we just give them the last of it. And that's going to be our check-in with the Euros in this experimental system. And oops, let's not forget, we wanted to also treat some of the outer edges with even more moisture, even though the system is already quite damp. And that's also part of the design specifications. I think I mentioned that earlier, wanting to run this system really damp to see what becomes of it. So that was the second to last item. Let's not forget, I wanted to treat the system with some of that mosquito dunks to try to use that as a preventative measure. Whatever flying insects are already in here living will be unharmed by the mosquito dunks. The mosquito dunks, as I understand it, actually works for their offspring, preventing their offspring from being able to develop into a full-blown flying insect. So that's the way that stuff works. It's not a poison per se, it's just something that inhibits the growth of the young flying insects. So last but not least is the new replacement cover I fashioned for them, and back on can go the plastic covers. So I'll be putting the little collection of stuff that got caught on the screen back on here too. I guess it was meant to serve as a reminder that at some point, if I start seeing some weird things coming out of these little boulders as they get broken down by the worms, I shouldn't be too surprised, because that was kind of what I was expecting to find inside these things. Little clumps of material. But luckily I don't see much, if any, of this stuff, so this might just go in the trash someday if it looks like that's not really an issue here, and then we'll be able to just keep treating this as an everyday bin, adding more bedding, adding more food, hopefully gradually building out the space that the worms can occupy in here, including hopefully the boulders in time. So that's it for the video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.